Grizzly bears are, as you may know, powerful creatures. Females are typically 290 to 400 pounds, and males can be anywhere from 400 to 790 pounds. They average 6.5 feet tall when they're standing up. Their front claws can be anywhere from 2 to 4 inches in length. Their bite, it's been estimated, could crush a bowling ball. Like sharks, grizzly bear attacks on humans are actually very rare, often giving the creatures this misunderstood nature as these evil beasts, which they just aren't. If they do attack a human, they are either desperate for food or they feel threatened. But as long as you remain calm and don't run, you have a high chance of escaping the potentially deadly situation. If anyone knew this, Timothy Treadwell did. A complicated man with a passion for grizzly bears, so obsessive and so deep, many said that he wished he actually was one. He would live among these bears for months at a time every single year, and he did it for 13 years straight before he was finally killed by one of the creatures that he was so fond of. Hey humans, it's Hannah. Welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, I do videos on creepy and disturbing things. Really quick, this video was actually recommended to me by a subscriber, Vagelis Fear, and I'm sure I said your name wrong, so I'm really sorry. And they actually recommended that I make this video back in like November 2020, so it was like almost a year ago, so I'm sorry it took me so long, but I did actually come around to it and thought it was a really interesting story. Timothy Treadwell was born on April 29th, 1957, and surprise, he has loved animals ever since he was a little kid. He even kept a pet squirrel named Willie. By all accounts, Timothy had a fairly normal childhood, growing up with 4 siblings. But things kind of took a weird turn when he left for college. It is just overwhelmingly clear that Timothy suffered from some sort of mental illness. I'm not here to diagnose, of course, but it's just overwhelmingly apparent in a lot of the footage of him that he had some sort of delusions. In the Grizzly Man documentary, his own father said that he spiraled down around this college time when he was actually kind of trying to become an actor. He really wanted the role of Woody Boyd on the old sitcom and famous sitcom Cheers, but he lost the role to Woody Harrelson. Allegedly, he was pretty close to getting the role and he was second to Woody Harrelson, but that's not been confirmed. We don't know how true that is. Timothy then struggled with alcoholism after that, and then eventually drug use as well. He would start telling people at his college that he was actually a British orphan from Australia. He would go as far as to learn like really detailed facts about the town that he said he was born in Australia to make the lie sound super convincing. But shortly after this, things then took a positive turn for Timothy. His friend convinced him to go to Alaska with him to study the bears. And that's where Timmy fell in love. He would fall in love with grizzly bears more than he would ever love anything else in this whole world. The bears were, like, for lack of a better word, his destiny, and he knew it. In the early 1980s, so Timothy was in his early 20s at that time, he almost passed away from overdose. He would become totally clean of drugs and alcohol, and he would attribute this recovery completely to the grizzly bears. So like we established at the beginning of the video, Timothy would spend months every single summer in very close proximity to the bears. And he didn't study them from afar. He would camp right in the middle of their habitat. He would film hours upon hours of both the bears and him and how close he would get to them. In this footage, you can see Timothy getting just way too close to grizzly bears, even touching them sometimes or playing with the cubs. Timothy would name a lot of the bears that he would see each summer because he saw the same bears over and over. And Timothy clearly believed that he had this mutual respect and like a true friendship with these bears. Timothy also clearly not only loved the bears, but pretty much hated human civilization, which, you know, to a lot of us is relatable. But like I said, it was almost like he was a little bit delusional, like thinking that he wanted to be a bear so much that he almost convinced himself that he wasn't really human. Or like maybe he was greater than a regular human, like somehow he was immune to being hurt by the bears.
Most times I'm a kind warrior out here. Most times I am gentle. I am like a flower. I'm like a fly on the wall, observing, non-committal, non-invasive in any way. Occasionally I am challenged, and in that case, the kind warrior must become a samurai, must become so formidable, so fearless of death, so strong that you will win. You will win. Even the bears will believe that you are more powerful. And in a sense, you must be more powerful if you are to survive in this land with the bear.
He believed that he was like on this spiritual level with them. He like thinks that he found this way to handle the bears so that they would respect him and never hurt him, which, as we know, is, I mean, it's delusional. You know, like, bears don't give a shit about whether you think you're spiritual with them or not. He was often criticized by many, as it turns out the bears didn't see him as anything other than an obnoxious human invading their habitat. No, that was not Timothy's intention in any way. I believe, and it's very clear, that Timothy seriously did love these animals, and he thought he was helping them and protecting them. But in spite of his belief that this was the case, it wasn't. Maybe he was even harming them. Since he was being so invasive on their habitat, he was then habituating the bears to humans, which makes the bears more dangerous to humans. It then makes the bears more willing to get close to humans, and this makes them easier targets for hunters. And it's almost really hard to watch because it's so clear that he was suffering from some type of mental illness or delusions. Every single clip of him, he is ranting. Like, he is ranting about how he knows how to not get attacked by the bears, how they know him, and how he is like dominated. That, like, it's weird. Like, he talks about them with a passion. He touched their poop, like got really excited about the bears' scat, and like just all this odd behavior that a lot of people, I think, thought was passion, but I personally think was just being out of touch with reality. And on top of that, it's really frustrating to watch somebody think that he's helping and he thinks that he's protecting the bears and advocating for them when really he's not. The bears don't want him there. The bears just want to be left alone, just like most wild animals do. They just want humans to leave them alone. Tom Smith was a research ecologist with the Alaska Science Center of the U.S. Geological Service. And he would later claim that, though I'm paraphrasing here, while what happened was extremely tragic, it was not surprising. He said Timothy would break all these park rules, interfering with nature and harassing the wildlife. They said that they had even warned him repeatedly that he was breaking important rules and he could get in trouble for it. Rangers from the National Park Service would report a ton of violations. Timothy would guide tourists without a license. They charged him, of course, for wildlife harassment because he got way too close to the bears and interfered with their natural processes, among many other complaints. Timothy wouldn't even carry bear spray. He had pepper spray one time and he did use it when he had to against one of the bears, but he basically threw it away because he felt so bad about the distress that he thought he caused the bear that he refused to carry bear spray or any type of protection. Which, I mean, I'm not against bear spray because that doesn't ultimately hurt the bear, but kind of good for him. At least he knew, since he was invading their territory, he really had no right to harm them when they acted normally. So at least he did seem aware of that. A lot of people in this area would also have these electric fences that could go around their campsite to keep the bears out when they were in their campsite, and he also refused to do that, even though that wouldn't hurt the bears at all. And then there's this footage of him just being straight up irate with the National Park Services. He got so mad at them for telling him he needed to follow the rules and telling him what he was doing was dangerous. He went on this rant at one point where he was just, I mean, he was dropping the F-bomb literally over and over and over and over and flipping off the camera, meaning to flip off National Park Services, and got just like disturbingly, irrationally angry at them for just, I mean, literally trying to keep him and the bears safe.
I came here and protected the animals as best I could. In fact, I'm the only protection for these animals out here. The government flying over a grand total of 2 times in 2 months. How dare they? How dare they challenge me? How dare they smear me in their campaigns? How dare they? When they do not look after these animals, and I come here in peace and in love, neutral, in respect. I will continue to do this. I will fight them. I will be an American dissident if I need be. There's a patriotic time going on right now, but as far as this government's concerned, you motherfucking Park Service.
He would claim they didn't care about the bears at all. He was the one that cared about them. He was the one there protecting them, and they weren't doing anything, and like that they were just imposing these rules on him basically just to be big meanies. Okay, let's talk about his death. It was October 2003, and that was the last summer that Timothy would live among the bears alive. He and his girlfriend, Amy Huguenard, who, by the way, is a very private person. Her family has been quiet and she never wanted to be on camera when she was alive, so we'll respect that and not discuss her much in this video. But the two of them were staying at Katmai National Park. Sorry for the pronunciation. Not only were the two camping near the salmon streams where the bears were hunting for fish, but they were also there later in the season than usual, which means that the bears were trying to gain as much fat as possible before winter. So food was also particularly scarce that fall, which was making the bears extra aggressive and desperate. The whole thing, it was basically just a cocktail for disaster. They actually had been planning to return home before this. They even made it to the airport, but according to Timmy, he had a dispute with one of the airline workers over the validity of their tickets, and angry about it, he and Amy went back to their campsite to stay an extra 7 days. So not only were they already there late in the season, and if they had just gone home, they would have been fine, at least for that year, but they went back not knowing that that would actually be their demise. So he went back to the campsite. They were there way late in the season, and all of his bears friends, the ones that were used to him being there and knew his presence, were already in hibernation. So the only bears around then were ones that were not familiar with him and didn't know him. Poor Amy was very uncomfortable camping close to the bears. Poor Amy didn't really seem like she wanted to be there. And even one account that I heard, I think it was in the documentary, is that she was actually planning on leaving Timothy pretty soon. And this was according to her own diary entries, that she was uncomfortable around the bears and did not want to be there. Timothy was also aware of this. It's not like she was keeping it a secret, because Timothy's journal entries would also reflect the fact that Amy did not like being so close to the grizzlies. That is arguably the saddest part about this whole story, is that at least Timothy knew that he might reach that fate eventually, and Amy did not want to be there. I don't know why she was there and why she agreed to go. That's, neither here nor there. But that's probably the most tragic part about this, is that she lost her life too when she didn't really want to be there and she did think it was dangerous. Timothy has footage of himself around the bears just hours before he was killed. He films this bear that's diving into the river repeatedly, and it looks like it's playing, but it's actually going for dead salmon at the bottom. Food was that scarce and that bear was that desperate. It's thought that perhaps he was filming the bear that would end up killing him. Even Timothy had said on his footage at one point that that particular bear made him pretty uncomfortable, which is amazing to me because I don't know about you, but all bears make me uncomfortable. Around noon on Sunday, October 5th, 2003, Timothy talked to an associate in Malibu, California by satellite phone and claimed they were having no issues with either them, the campsite, or the bears. By the next day, on October 6th, Willie Fulton, an air taxi pilot and a good friend of Timothy, arrived at their camp to pick up the couple and take them home, as they were scheduled to do. The couple wasn't there, but there was a bear protecting the area. Investigators found the couple's remains quickly. This is probably the most upsetting part, just a warning, but all they found of Timothy was his head, a piece of his spine, his right forearm, and the hand attached to it, and it still had his wristwatch on it. Amy, on the other hand, her partial remains were found next to the torn up tents, and she was buried under like some twigs and mud. And it's speculated that this is because the bear had eaten Timothy and the bear was full, so he was saving Amy for later, and that's why he was kind of protecting the campsite from other bears because his food source was there. But it didn't matter. The bear was quickly killed by park rangers, and it has been dubbed to this day as Bear 141. They then found human remains inside of Bear 141's stomach later, which just confirmed that this was the offending bear and that, of course, he ate Timothy. And then even worse, a second bear that was actually still in adolescence was also killed because it happened to be there and it charged at the park rangers, so they had to kill that one too. And no, the irony is not lost on me. Timothy, who lived his life trying to save and protect the bears, actually ended up being the cause for 2 of them being killed. It's sad. And of course, it is 100% true that Timothy would not have wanted them to kill those bears. If Timothy had had any say in it, he would have said, that's fine, you can let the bears eat me. And he kind of, like I said before, kind of knew that that was a possibility, and he would not have wanted them to kill them in order to get his remains back. He would rather his remains had stayed in the bear. That is 100% true, but it's still ironic because the rest of the world doesn't live the way that Timothy did, and they are going to kill the bear that killed a human. Regardless, Timothy caused the death of 2 bears inadvertently while trying to save all the bears. Now let's talk about the infamous video of the attack. I'm sure if you've heard of this story, you have heard of this video. Timothy's camera was turned on during the attack. We don't know why it didn't catch a video of anything. We're guessing that either it was the dead of night, the camera was in his bag, or he had left the lens cap on while they were trying to set up for another scene. We don't know, but the camera caught at least the audio of the attack and caught a full 6 minutes of it before it ran out of battery or ran out of film or whatever. Now, there is a huge controversy around this tape. There is a version of it floating around the internet very frequently claiming to be the real 2 minutes of the 6-minute audio of Timothy's last moments. But I just want to say right here that as far as anybody knows, this is not the real tape. This was a reenactment of the audio based on what we knew about the real audio. In the documentary, the creator of the film Grizzly Man had listened to the real audio with Julia, who was Timothy's ex-girlfriend and very good friend, and she, of course wasn't there, so she's still alive and well, and she watched as he listened to the real audio. He gave her the tape after the audio. He couldn't listen to the whole thing. He told her to turn it off, and he told her, you must never listen to this, and advised that she destroyed the tape, saying that, it'll be the white elephant in the room the rest of your life. According to what I've read, so not confirmed, but what I believe is that she did not destroy the tape, but she has the only copy, and she's in possession of it, and she put it in a safety deposit box. The real tape has never been released. She says in the documentary that nobody will ever hear it. So it's really frustrating though, because you'll see this tape all over the internet and people argue tooth and nail about its authenticity. And I am just gonna tell you that it is not real. It's a reenactment. It doesn't exactly match what they say is on the real audio. Like, for example, they say that in the real audio, she's hitting the bear with a frying pan, and you don't hear that in this audio. And it's just this loop. Every reliable source that I've read says that it has never been released and that this tape floating around is a fake. I'm sorry for getting frustrated, but these rumors just drive me absolutely nuts. I don't know why people want it to be the real tape so bad, but I just wanted to get that out there that I have done due diligence on this particular fact. That tape is not real, no matter what anybody says. That being said, you can easily find this 2-minute audio on YouTube and other places if you do want to listen to it. But I will warn you that I have heard this fake version quite a few times, and it is pretty disturbing still, so just remember that it is fake. I'm not going to include it in this video because I'm going to let you guys decide whether you want to listen to it or not. You can very easily find it. It's not hidden. But here is what we hear in the tape without actually playing it. You hear Timothy yelling and screaming for his life at the beginning of the tape. He shouts to Amy, "Come out here, I'm being killed out here," which I assume means that Amy was originally in a tent. You can hear Amy frantically screaming at Timothy to play dead, play dead. But then when that clearly wasn't working at all, she then resorts to saying, fight back. And then Timothy, by all accounts, was trying to get Amy to run away and leave. He was trying to save Amy's life because the bear was clearly preoccupied with him, and she likely could have probably gotten away since the bear was going to take a few minutes with him and probably would not have chased after her if she had left in that moment. But Amy didn't. She stayed with Timothy and she got a frying pan. She did try to fight the bear. She tried to get the bear off of him and scare it away, to no avail, and both of them ended up passing away. And even the reenactment of the tape, I mean, it's just these awful moments of the end of someone's life. And not only that, but you know that they're both conscious and aware of what's happening. Neither of them stood a chance. I would never say that anyone deserves death. I think very, very few circumstances do people actually deserve that. I definitely don't think Timmy did. I think he was genuine. I think he genuinely believed he was helping. He genuinely had this real love for these animals, but I think he didn't understand. I think he lacked this sense of reality. I think he honestly just was in this other world and unintentionally thought that he could somehow be more than human, and it caused this tragedy. Let me know what you guys think down below. I believe the full documentary is on YouTube that you can watch free with ads right now if you do want to see the full documentary. Let me know what you guys think down below. Please give this video a like just to help the channel out, and thank you guys so much for watching. Also, here are my Patreons on the screen. A big thank you to them, especially to Colin Holmes, The Deck of Cards, Creep Me Out, and Alice Paul for being in the highest tier. But of course, a big thanks to all of them. If you're interested in joining my Patreon, it's linked down below. There's lots of cool perks that you can go check out over there if you're interested. And I will see you guys all in the next video.